Hello, you're watching Business Spotlights. I am Nontobeko Kumete, and this week we will be focusing on the annual Standard Bank SME Summit that's currently ongoing at Arena Holdings in Parktown, Johannesburg. So this year's theme is focused on connected growth, emphasizing digital innovation and global trade. And joining me in studio is Thembi Dlamini, who is the head of Africa-China Trade at Standard Bank. Thembi, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Now, the panel that you are part of is titled Unlocking International Markets and Exploring Trade Financial Solutions for SMEs. What are the type of challenges here, especially looking at data and insights that you are trying to address in this panel?
So we were trying to address, access to markets for SMEs that are looking at cross-border markets. Right now with the geopolitical matters at play right now, and just some of the trans-regional trade in terms of access for businesses. So we were talking about ways of navigating those type of challenges of, cross-border trade, sending your products to other markets, looking at other growth opportunities elsewhere.
A lot of SMEs, till this day, they still, have challenges when it comes to access to funding, as you have alluded. From your perspective, what can they do better, or what are they missing out on?
So the theme, as you touched on, was on, using enablers like digital tools, and also using some of the tools and solutions that we have in terms of funding or looking at your trade facilities. One of the key things from digital enablement is the ability to showcase your products in other markets with some of the tariff barriers or the non-tariff barriers that we have. One of the key things that came up was movement of goods, and the cost of movements of goods, particularly looking at Africa, and how is it that you can reach other markets without, that excessive cost that comes with it. And e-commerce is a good way of looking at it, and B2B matchmaking platforms. Those were some of the tools that we highlighted. From a payments and finance solution perspective, one of the key themes that came up was around trust. When you're doing business with other businesses across border that you're not familiar with, what are some of the tools that you can utilize to ensure that you still have working capital? You can leverage some of the trade finance options, invoice discounting options that are there to really help mitigate some of the risks that we've seen businesses as they do business across board.
Now, we cannot talk about e-commerce without obviously talking about technological innovation, as you have touched. And with the accelerated shift to e-commerce here in South Africa, what are some of the biggest hurdles that are stopping SMEs from scaling up, not just entering the market?
Yeah. One important theme that did come up is around the availability of good infrastructure. I think, as a South African business, one of the key things that we've struggled with, the availability of energy, the availability of connectivity, and really how do you then, navigate around those challenges. So that was quite evident in the discussion of how do businesses over and above that work with partners such as Standard Bank. We are in African markets, we are offshore, we are in China. How do you leverage those type of strategic partnerships to ensure that you have that far reach, even as you're faced with some of the immediate challenges such as infrastructure? Again, e-commerce is a big one. We've seen it with the growth of some of the e-commerce platforms locally as well as internationally, where they're able to surpass some of the trade barriers that are naturally there, but also accelerate growth rapidly for small businesses.
I love how you touched on leveraging on partnerships. And as a person who is the head of Africa-China Banking at Standard Bank, how is the organizing leveraging on the Africa-China trade to foster opportunities for SMEs in South Africa?
So we've been in China for 17 years. We've looked at it in a manner that how do we use our networks? How do we use our understanding of the Chinese market? How do we use our partnerships? We are strategically in a partnership with the Industrial Commercial Bank of China. How do we utilize those aspects to enable our businesses to navigate a complex market such as China? We do that. We've just come back from the China-Africa Economic Trade Expo that is really for China and Africa. And we allowed our clients to actually have the ability to showcase their products. Over and above that, we were able to introduce them to vetted buyers. Again, that's also one of the questions that comes up around, but then how do I know I'm dealing with the right person? So we leverage those platforms and give access to our clients to do that. Over and above that, one of the things that came up was around, if I'm looking for a product in China and I don't know who's on the other end. We also have an import solution where we help our clients to, from an end-to-end, be able to source products they wouldn't find locally or products that are quite specialized. Again, building that bridge in terms of the payment structures that we then offer, and then obviously the ability for our clients to do business in China, but mitigating some of the risks that they may face.
Now, as a small business entrepreneur, or even medium-sized as well, what criteria should they look at when, let's say, they would like to approach Standard Bank and be part of the SME initiatives and platforms offered?
So the initiatives are for our clients. We partner with our clients for growth. We're very proud of that. I think the first thing is to engage us when you're starting to think around this and looking at different markets and really access to information. We've got the trade barometer that we do on an annual basis. It's purely based on the markets that we are in, and particularly in Africa. And as you know, access to information in Africa is quite scarce. But when you have a business like Standard Bank or Standbank, where we're on the ground with small businesses on the daily basis, we're able to advise you accordingly and then navigate with you through some of those challenges and partner with you for growth.
Not that we're asking you to share some of the tips and teas right now, but what are some of the emerging trends that SMEs should also look out for, especially when looking at the future, the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I touched on digitalization. I think one that's also growing quite rapidly is sustainability. Being competitive in the European market, you need products that are quite, how you produce your product has to have a sustainable impact for them to look at it and for you to have a competitive advantage. And I think what has come up, particularly in the last 6 months with all the political plays, is really for businesses, how do you diversify your supply chain in terms of, where else can you look in terms of sourcing product, or where else can you look in terms of supplying your product? I think those are some of the key things that, going forward are quite critical to how small or SMEs survive in these climates.
Well, thank you very much for joining us there, Thembi. We might not have a lot of time, but can you please just touch on some of the partnerships that Standard Bank currently has right now that is looking at this initiative in terms of bringing out more opportunities for SMEs ongoing?
Yeah. So right now, if you look at our small enterprise team and just some of the initiatives that we're working on, one, it's quite important for us to share the knowledge and information and how we help small, medium enterprises develop. We are looking at launching an export program right now that's going to help small businesses get market ready. Some of the things that we're doing are around our key market access initiatives or signature events. We have the likes of the China-Africa Economic Expo that I just mentioned right now, but we do have other signature events that might take place at the end of the year, the China International Import Expo, that we offer our clients those type of platforms for them to be able to showcase their products. From a partnership perspective as well, we believe strongly in collaboration. We've worked quite strongly with some of the trade promotions in South Africa, in the Chinese market, and also just in Africa as a whole.
Well, there's so much to look out there for SMEs, lots of opportunities to tap into. Thank you very much for joining us, Thembi.
Thank you.
That was Thembi Dlamini, Head of Africa-China Banking at Standard Bank South Africa. Until next time, goodbye.